In June 2013, while visiting the Gingerbread Islands in the Bahamas, I went for a walk through a wooded area with a friend. The path was a narrow, winding road lined with sparse dead trees and dry brush. The setting was quiet, secluded, and unmistakable. The sun had begun to set, casting the landscape in a fading golden light, enough to clearly distinguish detail with 20 to 30 feet. Approximately 30 seconds before visual contact, I experienced an overwhelming shift in perception, a deep primal dread and fright. My heart dropped into my stomach and I was overwhelmed by a warning. It was not a reaction to any visible stimulus, but a bodily warning, subconscious but unmistakable, the strongest flight response I have ever felt, even compared to close range encounters with sharks while freediving. As we rounded a bend in the trail, we came across a small clearing where no more than 30 feet ahead crouched a creature I've never seen before, no taller than 4 feet when crouched, completely hairless, uniformly smooth, pale white skin tied over its skeletal frame with no visible muscle definition. The body was extremely thin and emaciated, vertebrae visibly protruding down the back, long limbs with loose folded skin at the elbows and wrist, only bone beneath skin. The hands had four elongated fingers, each tipped with sharp black nails, and the face had no visible lips. However, they had two small slits above the mouth resembling nostrils, numerous small tiny teeth smeared with blood. The eyes were entirely black, void-like, without pupils or whites. It turned abruptly, but it locked eyes. It then turned and fled on all fours, disappearing into the forest. The movement resembled that of a human attempting to run on all fours, unnatural, jarring, but coordinated. We sprinted back to the marina. I recounted the encounter to others who dismissed it as a dream or an overreactive imagination. Was never overwhelmed by nightmares. I have not seen it again. I am knowledgeable about the local nature and wildlife. I have never come across a creature that matched the description or knowledge of what I have seen. I live near the eastern Sierra Nevada mountains. I hike up there pretty much from May to October. A few years ago, I decided to hike this pretty strenuous trail that leads to a huge rock slide. I park and I notice I'm the only person there. I have two dogs, get them out, and start up the trail. About a mile in, I come to this clearing that has a huge teepee-like structure in it. The trees are all woven together. I put down my walking stick and stop to take pictures. Seemed weird but cool. In the last picture you can see that there's a sapling that is alive that is bent nearly fully backwards that's woven in there. I moved up the trail after the pictures, and as soon as I walked past the tree structure, I immediately felt like I was being watched, and the woods were silent. It was so weird. No bugs, no birds, no small animal noises. Dead silent. I hike by myself all the time. I don't get creeped out or really too scared. I've seen bears and I'm sure there are cougars out there. I keep going up and the feeling is getting way more intense, and my dogs are starting to act weird. They are experienced trail dogs. They don't really get weird like that. They're staying super close to me, not making a lot of noise. I realize that I left my walking stick down by the tree structure. Oh well, I don't want to go back down to get it and then back up. I got a quarter mile or so past the tree structure, and the feeling of being watched was unbearable. I'm thinking, okay, rationally, it's probably a big cat, so I head back down. The rational part of my brain told me to slow down. My flight response, nope, full speed down at 30 to 40 degree slope. I get down to the tree structure in meadow and I look down and my walking stick is gone. Like it's nowhere to be seen. It was pretty distinct because it was made of aspen and I picked it up somewhere else. There's no aspen in this part of the forest. I'm terrified. I kept running. I felt like I was being chased, but I never saw anything. Never heard anything either. Yes, it could have been a big cat, but why did it only start after I passed the tree structure, and how did my stick go missing? I was nearly to the parking lot before the feeling of being watched slash chased left me. I will never ever go back there. Still thinking about it gives me the creeps. I was at this park with my then girlfriend that has a neighborhood on one side and a few miles of pretty dense forest on the other. We were stargazing. As we sat in this opening near the neighborhood, I heard a rustling in the patch of shrubbery that sounded like a person stomping around. I immediately got up to investigate. as this area is known for sketchy behavior, drug deals, and the like. What I saw made no sense. I still feel like I imagined it or something. I saw what looked like a person hunched over with a white cloth over them, walking out of the brush and standing on a path that goes around the entire park. I turned to my girlfriend and asked her what it looks like, without telling her what it looks like to me, and she described it exactly as I did, so we hightailed it out of there, booked it out to the car, and got in. And I'm wanting to know what it is, so I turned on the high beams and hoping it would follow us. It did not. Now this is where it gets even stranger. We went to another park because we wanted to continue stargazing, so we drove a few miles to this other park that is essentially a giant field. When we got there, we found a bench and sat down and managed to forget about the weird encounter. After about 10 to 15 minutes of this, we suddenly saw, not heard you mind, what appeared to be a black helicopter flying over us in the direction of that first park. This thing was completely silent. Not a single sound. I have not been able to find any pictures online that came close to what it looked like. This thing maneuvered like nothing I've ever seen. Granted, I don't know much about aviation, but it dipped over a tree line at an angle so steep that we thought it was going to crash. The weird part of it all is that there was someone else at the second park, an old woman walking her dog, that didn't react to the plane/helicopter at all. Let me start by saying, I've lived in the Appalachian Mountains all my life, and I have experienced a lot of strange things. My family is Irish and settled in West Virginia, but I currently live in the North Carolina portion of these wonderful mountains. That being said, I've learned a lot about what really works in these dark woods, but this is what was like nothing I'd ever experienced before. It all began with my golden retriever Ozzy. He was growling like I had never heard before. He literally never growls, so that had already had me uncomfortable. But this growl was bone chilling. It was like he was getting ready to have a fight for his life or something. I took both him and my other dog out around 11 p.m., and he would not leave my side. I noticed that my workshop door was open, so I walked down to close it and lock it up. The entire time, he was glued to my side. Ozzy also kept trying to get in between my legs, still growling and all of his hair sticking up straight up like a feral animal. The second I closed the door, all hell breaks loose in the woods. It sounded like 50 full-grown men had broken out into a full sprint tearing through the woods. Trees were shaking and branches were falling. In my life, I've never been that scared. We got back in the house and I got my pistol/mag light to figure out what the hell was on out there. When the dog and I got back outside, we were surrounded by what sounded like people mumbling. It was everywhere. I shined the light all over the woods and couldn't see anything, but the sound was coming from all around. It sounded as if it got a full gym of people to baby mumble. You could almost make out the words. That's what I don't think it was an animal. I almost immediately felt sick, like I was having a mix between a panic attack and full swing of the flu. Back inside the house, it sounded like people were walking around all night. The windows were creaking and you could clearly hear the sound of footsteps on gravel. The mumbling never stopped. Every time I got up to check the house, my feet would touch the floor and it would get dead silent. You couldn't hear birds, crickets, frogs, or anything. I was terrified and didn't sleep a wink. The air felt thick and evil all night. That's the only way I could explain this feeling. Imagine a soaking wet quilt being tossed over you. That's how I felt. About 15 years ago, I was living up towards Carthius, just me and the dog, and it was about 11 to 12 at night when the dog started to whine at the door. I assumed to go out before bed, but I opened the door and she backed away from the screen door. This was a active young German Shepherd. Her before bed patrol was the highlight of her day. This was very strange. I'm fussing with her, getting her hooked up, ready for a run. Anyway, when something slams my screen door, I fell on my back and grabbed the dog, who started snarling and pushing out the door. In the faint light, I can see a canine muzzle, black and teeth. I held myself up and realized that this animal outside is shoulder high to the middle bar of my screen door. I'm sure it wasn't jumping against the door because I can see the teeth and hear it snarling about level with my hip. I slammed the big door. My dog is still on the lead. I can still hear it outside. I leave the dog leashed so she's easier to keep controlled. I move less than 5 feet to the window and see absolutely nothing. I see nothing at all on the patio. I still hear it. It hasn't gotten farther away. My dog is now hysterically barking at the door. but there is nothing outside. I turn the porch light on and it stops. The only sound remaining is my dog, still barking, her head off. Called my partner, he saw nothing weird when he got home. The dog eventually settled, but never did go out that night. I put down a puppy pad in the garage for her, and I don't think I ever turned off that porch light again.